So yeah, we got another CCL matchup today. We've got UCLA's B team against University of Arizona. So this is round 4, pretty deep into the tournament. It is double elimination, so one of these teams will be eliminated after today. It's 4 players per team, 2 teams, so 16 games total. First to 8.5 points wins. And yeah, it should be starting any minute now. It's a close match, actually. If I pull up the rosters from both teams, board 1, UCLA, 2200 by the name of Unshul. And our board 2 is 2065. Their board 1 also 2200, and their board 2 is 2058. So already boards 1, boards 2 are really close. Our board 3 is 2007, and their board 3 is 1954. So we have about 50 rating points advantage on our third board. And the fourth board is about 1890 for UCLA and 1950 for U of A. So about 50 rating points in their favor. So 2 very, very similar rated teams. And we've got the first games underway here. So let me switch over to the better format. And let me add a scoreboard as well so that we can see what the score is here. So let's see. One second, you guys. I should have done this before, obviously, but okay, so UCLA colors should be well, I know the UCLA colors. Arizona's blue and red, I believe. Sorry about this. What's up, Face Chess? Good to see you. Okay, let me add the scoreboard here. Maybe someone else can provide commentary for the match. Don't worry, it's gonna look good. It's gonna look good. Should look good. All right. You guys tell me if that's good or not. That looks good to me. Okay. All right, so what's going on here? This is This is our board 2 against their board 3. So UCLA is the top seed here. We are favored, but again, the scores are pretty even. I'm thinking we had an opportunity to capture here on e4. The queen was under attack. So this is definitely a weak point in the white position. This is a pinned pawn, pins to the queen. Protected by the knight, although now with this queen move, we are pinning the knight. So this is a threat, just straight up win the pawn. And yeah, I mean, we can still win this pawn. We've got enough to defend it, and the queen's going to have to move once this f-file opens up. So we'll see. I mean, we can play a move like this. Knight to c4 threatens checkmate. What's a good way to stop this? Probably just bishop back. Might be an only move. Bishop comes with check as well, so that's something else to think about. So yeah, white decides to castle long here, gets the rook involved on this nice d file. It's completely wide open. All right, so we capture with the bishop, and the knight can take here. So if knight takes, I'm guessing pawn takes, and then we've got these double isolated pawns on the e file. And if queen takes, then queen takes, and we still end up with these double isolated pawns. So this is an interesting decision. I think the knight should recapture here. But it looks like black is just trying to trade down, I guess. So no recapture, interestingly. The knight here is guarding this bishop. So the knight is actually defending. It's doing a job here on c3. So I guess if takes, hitting the queen, the bishop falls. Although, you know, okay, bishop comes back with check, knight takes with check. So yeah, in that variation, the queen would be hanging. So very wise of white not to capture here. Now, this is a major threat. Not yet checkmate, but once the rook comes over to check, I think this knight's going to fall. All right, so we take with the knight. You got to retake this, probably with the a-pawn. If this pawn takes from the c-file, this bishop, the eyes just light up. But, you know, the knight now is more free to take on e4 now that it's no longer defending the bishop on a4. So this bishop, although very strong, maybe I liked the move f4, because if knight takes, queen takes, and the bishop's still under attack and the queen is hanging, so we save the bishop this way, although I think f4 would have been a better choice, because then that allows the bishop to move back and stay on this really nice diagonal, taking a lot of squares away from this king. So this is Caleb here, our board 2. He's electing to play safe, bringing the bishop back. This does take away an entrance square from this rook, prevents it from getting to d7. All right, so queen to c4 check, immediate queen recapture. We have the queens off the board now. We're entering into an endgame, and we're snipping off this g2 pawn. So opening up this g file for the rook, but we are getting 2 pawns for it. Yeah, so I mean, let's see. Caleb's not taking right away. Maybe considering f3, but I would totally take this. Let's see, this bishop here a threat? I mean, we could always play bishop here, rook to f7. Instead, going all the way back to c6. Again, taking away this entrance square. So I'm expecting... All right, so rook f7 played. If bishop to f6, the rook can enter on d6. And another thing to note about bishop c6 is it completely blocks out this knight's forward moves. Roland, good to see you. And Durkee as well. Thanks for stopping by, you guys. Appreciate it. So, okay, the knight hops into d5. We have to ask ourselves if we want to take or not. Instead, the king moves over to f8. adding a little extra defense to the bishop on e7, but also attacking the bishop on h6. So the bishop retreats, and now the threat is to take this bishop and then to take on c5. So how exactly do we stop this? The knight takes with a threat of the bishop on c6 as well. So this could be a bit of a dilemma, actually. You might have to take this knight if you want to defend c5. No, okay, so just simply getting the bishop out of the knight's eyes. So bishop no longer on e7, no longer a threat of being captured. We are lined up against this rook, but I don't see any good discoveries from the knight. Alright, so f3, perhaps giving a flight square to the bishop to add some pressure to c5. We have rook to d8, defending our bishop on d6 for any potential discoveries. Just playing pretty solid here, both sides even on the clock. Let's look over at this is our board 1 against their board 4. So their board 4, Don Quixote. Pretty good username here. Black pressing forward. Black definitely the favorite to win this match. We've got a very dominant rook here on this g file, cutting off this king from the rest of the board. And now the king stepping in. We're going to gobble up this f2 pawn. Going to get a really nice, strong pass pawn. But most importantly, we're just threatening checkmate here, actually, as the king has no squares to move. So I think you just got to gobble this up. And then it should be a pretty simple, straightforward win for black. Yeah, we got a resignation. So first point on the board, board 1 against board 4, as expected. Here, this is our board 3 against their board 2. Really low on the clock here. Let's see, what's going on in this position? We're losing a pawn, it seems. Can we play knight in here? Get this fork action. Probably king up. Oh, we can defend the knight and then trade off a pair of rooks here. So 30 seconds for white, but black is now being pressured likewise. So we're catching up on some time there. Alright, so the king actually kicks the knight out. I would have liked to have seen h5. I think h5 would have been pretty sweet. So the king has to step back. Probably... Okay, well now knight check. Oh, no, we win the bishop. Okay, so this pawn was left hanging on purpose, which I like. Now rook check. No, grab the pawn first. Okay, I like this move as well. So we're discommunicating the rooks. So they're going to attack d4, which makes sense, the defender of the knight. Now we've got both ranks, or both rooks on the 7th rank. So these are very strong pigs, as they're called. And actually, we probably have a checkmating pattern. Yep, checkmate right there, or there. Very well done. Very well done by our board 3, upsetting their board 2. Let's go back to our board 2 versus their board 3. Looks like we're trading down. Are we going to lose this pawn? Defending. Ooh, that's a terrible pre-move by white. And we're going to take that. And that's going to be a win here as well. So it looks like we're off to a strong 3-0 start. And this is our board 4 against their board 1. So let's see what's going on in this position. You could have blocked with the rook. With check, but the king steps over, and I don't know. We could win this pawn, but I think what's going on here? We're threatening this rook to e1. So by not blocking with this rook, we're still keeping the king cut off from the d file, and this could be a 4-0 sweep here. How exactly is black going to prevent rook to e1 check and checkmate? If you grab this pawn, rook takes. This could be a sweep. Okay, so grabbing the rook. King finds shelter on c1, and we got a resignation. Wow, what a match. Hot start here from the UCLA team. Let me update the scores. No. So this should be... Oops. Well, didn't mean to do that. Okay, 1 second. All right. So wow, what a nice start to this match here. Hot start, 4-0. So we got that big upset, board 4 beating their board 1. So let's see if Arizona can respond. This is the first game of the second round. This is our board 1, Unshul against their board 3. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, here we go. Okay. What's going on here? Board 1 against their board 3. So white to move here. Probably think about taking this knight. Can we take advantage of this queen here? Maybe bishop. Well, okay. So the idea is that black is attacking the knight and the pawn at the same time. So we trade the knights. Now we got to protect c4 likely. So queen to e2 has been played, adding some extra support to these pawns. Move like b3 can run into some issues along this long diagonal. So I think white's plan is eventually to develop this bishop and then get the rook off that diagonal and probably onto the c file or maybe even the d file since it's already half opened. And then we can start pushing these pawns to solidify this pawn chain. So yeah, here black just adding extra pressure, and now there are tactics in the air. I could have imagined a move like knight takes e4 was already possible there. All right, so stepping into a fork, but we have knight a4 hitting the queen. So now the question is if d3 can be played in certain lines, again opening up this diagonal. So Maybe a move like rook to d1 now would be nice. Multi-purpose move, defending this bishop by pinning the pawn, but also getting out of this diagonal. So getting away from any potential discovery checks. But also, I mean, discovery attacks, not checks, but same idea. So, okay, instead going with the F rook. So leaving this rook still on this diagonal, but we are attacking d4. So c5 has been played, connecting this passed pawn. So maybe black is not too quick to push, trying to get an attack going. Okay, this is interesting. We're going for a fork here on e5, but you know, the queen can move on to the e file and pin the pawn to the queen, which is currently undefended. Although knight to c5 would work, which forks the queen and the bishop. And after knight takes, queen takes, then we can take here. So this was an interesting sacrifice of the piece for the pawn. So we'll see where this queen goes. So queen goes all the way back. We still have this fork. Oh, I didn't even realize that this fork comes with a discovery on this diagonal as well. So we could totally take. And the thing is that normally you don't want to give up your fianchettoed bishop, but with this nice knight fork, we actually get the light square bishop of black. So this bishop can be traded off. So okay, here Anshul very wisely deciding to snip off this dark square bishop, because if knight takes this bishop, it is true that we can feel more comfortable taking this rook with our light square bishop that was fianchettoed, but we lose our knight, and this bishop, we could enter an opposite color endgame, an opposite color bishop endgame. Okay, so interestingly, knight takes comes with check, so this knight is not necessarily pinned, but we are still kicking out the queen, just inconveniencing it. But yeah, knight takes, probably queen takes, and now we can take here if we'd like, and then followed by rook takes, and then queen up, hitting the rook, hitting the pawn. We could see rook to d8 played. So yeah, even though, okay, just trying to get the queens off. That's pretty smart. And we're definitely going to be winning this d4 pawn back. So I think we're in time to double up our rooks and lock this pawn onto a dark square before the bishop can kick out the rook. And we can take it in time. This should just be a pretty simple one endgame. So very well done. Well played here so far by Anshul. And yeah, we can just grab this pawn right away with either rook or queen. This pawn's also hanging. And if you really wanted to trade off queens, move like, yeah, queen to d5, x-raying the rook. So if you wanted to prevent all trades, you'd have to play queen back to this 8th rank. Either way, very passive. But yeah, there's a couple moves to be played. I think taking is probably best because you get this isolated d pawn, best for black. And now, yeah, this pawn's moving up. So this pawn's not moving any further, but you know, it's defended for now. Let's see, rook to c5. Let's head on over to another game. Ooh, this was our board 2 against their board 4. What happened in this one? So we got a pawn there. We got a fork. That was big. So this move, trying to hit this rook, was a blunder. Getting a piece, getting another pawn. Now the rook's coming in. This knight is left hanging, but it's with checkmate. So well done for our board 2 to capitalize on a mistake there by their board 4. Let's look. This is our board 4 against their board 2. So what's going on in this position? Now our board 4 beat their board 1 in the last round. So this is anyone's game here. Our board 4 has proven himself. Here though, he's getting pinned and probably going to have to double isolate his f-pawns in front of his king, which is not too pleasant. Not too pleasant. And this pawn it's sufficiently defended, but we'll see if white wants to invest their fianchetto bishop to win another pawn. Yeah, either piece takes. You got to take with the pawn. But yeah, if you take with the knight, recapturing with the pawn will force white to move the bishop somewhere. So we'll see if white wants to add extra pressure. Although in a move like queen f3, we can respond perhaps. No. A move like bishop to d5 looks nice, pinning the knight to the queen, but knight recaptures with check. And this knight is the only defender of the bishop on d5. So knight takes, we take, and our bishop's actually hanging, but so is their bishop. So maybe they can invest a move like taking here first, then we take, then they take. I don't know, we can take here or here. It's an interesting line, but I don't think it's very good for black. So we'll see what white comes up with here. About even time on the clock. Let me update Caleb's score real fast. He's got us another point on the board. So, all right, just taking with the bishop, recapturing with the g-pawn. No tempo on the bishop since they've taken. I would have liked maybe knight takes, pawn takes, and then bishop infiltrating on h6. If the rook moves, then the queen can come in next, and yeah, it's a lot of pressure on this black king side if they had kept the bishop on h6, but instead they trade the bishop off because they want to use this tempo that they've saved to bring the queen in. And I guess the idea is queen to h6, knight takes, queen takes, mate. So that could win the queen. So how does black respond to queen h6? How do we get this this off? So we go f5, inviting the knight in to g5, threatening checkmate on h7. So if knight to g5, we'll probably play f6, kicking the knight out and also adding some defense laterally with the queen. In fact, might be the only move that saves checkmate on h7. So here we lose the bishop, and now the rook comes in with tempo. Bishop to d5 would be huge if allowed. So I think the queen should watch over this d5 square. All right, so offering potential queen trade. If queen takes and rook takes, then queen or bishop d5 would win the exchange. Instead, just grabbing the piece, but still threatening bishop d5 even stronger to win the queen. So now we got to play a move like rook to d8. And yeah, white's definitely for choice here. Stronger position, up in material, up on the clock. Let's head over to Anshul's game. My goodness, there's no time left. But yeah, Anshul gonna grab this pawn, gonna lose this pawn, but now it's a pinned piece, and we could actually just sack the rook. Yeah, and this is easy, clean win for Anshul. All right, let's look at our board 3 against. I believe this is their board 1. So their board 1 lost to our board 4. So trying to get the points back. Let's see if our board 3 can also beat them. Very low on the clock. You have to move. 4 seconds left. And we've hung our H pawn. So blunder there. Tough for black to defend. We get the pawn back, but it's also going to fall. Maybe a queen trade could be helpful if the bishop moves back. All right, so penning the bishop. I wonder if we could sack our bishop with check and then just have a cascade like push of pawns. Well, not anymore. This pawn falls. You got to keep the rooks on. Yeah. Pressure this. Okay, king's in time now to defend. Step up, yeah. I like it. Gotta watch out for this check. You gotta move the bishop. No, okay, the knight defends. Well, alright, bishop takes. Alright. Well, man, they're both living off the increment here. Yeah, ganging up on this is a good idea. Just bishop here would work. No, 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 you can't take back. You can't take back. Yeah, that's going to be a lost piece. Maybe rook to a1, but rook takes and rook can always come back in time to defend. Oh, well, yeah, rook takes, and now you're only down in exchange, but you're also down the outside pass pawn, so this should be a win for their board 1. So, should be interesting. Yeah, and they could even take here if they wanted. This is unfortunate. Bishop here, king steps forward. Yeah. Bishop here. No, going for any last minute tricks, but it's not gonna work with the rook. They're trying. The effort is there. Just sack the rook, yeah. And that should be it. So resignation. Now this is the last match. Our board 3 against their board 1. Or I mean board 2. Let's put that board on the point on the board for them. Our board 1 also got a point there, so let's make this. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so we're losing a pawn here. At least. We could have tried maybe like... Yeah, they take with the rook. All right. Well, this looks lost. Let's see. Going for some counterplay. Also watching out for this big fork from their knight. They can still give check. But yeah, let's see if we can get our rook to e2. Nope. So they have just decided to stop that, which is pretty smart. Living off the increment here. Just king over. Grabs another pawn. Yeah. Let's see if white makes a big blunder. No, just playing it safe. Take with the rook. Yeah. Just, yep. b4. You could play. Yeah, white's just going to convert this. What's good, white noise? All right, what's black got? Stalemate chances? Or no chances? Yeah, too slow. You could even sack the queen for the pawn. Yeah, or just get the queen. There as well works. 2 queens now. Fighting on. This is our board 4. So our board 4 already took down their board 1. Hoping for stalemate. No, alright. Playing it to the end. Alright, so let's get a point on for their board 2. So the match is 2-6 after 2 rounds. Going into round 3 here with a 4-game lead. Pretty comfy. So, you know, boards 1 and 2 getting points for Arizona there. They did get swept the first round, but the second round was even, with both teams, boards 1 and 2, getting points for their teams. So, wow, these guys are playing really fast through this theory. This was an attempt at the fried liver, I believe. So the 2 knights defense. And this is all fairly well known. And both sides castle. These pieces could potentially become forked. I also like the idea of the bishop to g4 pinning the knight to the queen. So the rook moves, making space for the bishop, going all the way back to f1. Right now, this pawn is being attacked twice, only defended once. This knight is slightly sidelined. Let's see if we go in for this knight pin. This is our board 2 against their board 1. Now, UCLA only needs 2 points to ensure the draw. But I think we're going to go for more than that. We should go for more than that. This is our board 4 against their board 3. Yeah. So Arizona's board 3 and board 4 have not gotten points yet. So these last 2 rounds, they're definitely going to be trying to get on the board. And in fact, they're going to need to if they're going to have any chance of coming back in this match. Alright, so just pretty strong central development for both white and black here. I think white would like to eventually get a d4 pawn push in, but you got to make sure that you're not hanging e4. So knight to d2 protects it. It was under attack twice from both the knight and the bishop, but knight to c6 blocks the bishop temporarily. So we are ready to push d4, I believe. But there's no rush. There's no rush, not yet. Black could try to clamp down with a move like e5 if they wanted to. I think eventually this knight's going to want to move and get the queen on this diagonal, try to trade off dark square bishops. So the knight hops into e5 instead, opening up the bishop, proposing a knight trade. Knight takes, pawn takes. So you've got double pawns here, but we are opening up this file for the queen. I think a move like knight to f3 would make a lot of sense. Or, you know, just grabbing a free pawn there. That's also pretty good. So we could keep the bishop along this diagonal, but I think black just castles and we will like the bishop back here. So yeah, we just want a pawn there. That's pretty good. Our board 4 playing really pretty well, to be fair. Pretty strong. Taking down their top board. And it was a close game against their board 2. And now here he's playing against their board 3. So up a pawn. Got that nice open A file for the rook. Queen's coming in. Black's got a castle eventually. They should at least. This pawn's hanging though. So queen's coming up, defending. This also makes it more difficult to push d4. Just adding more pressure along the c file. This diagonal. So, alright, knight to f3 has been played. Attacking this pawn. Knight retreats, defending the pawn twice. Opening up this diagonal, and, again, this king should castle soon. We could see a move like knight to g5, attacking f7 twice. Castling would defend, though. But, we could induce some sort of weakness with a pawn push, maybe. Definitely not f6. But anyways, here, white just keep it on the pressure. You can double up on the a-file, try to hit this bishop. I like it. Now, rook could come back, but that was a waste of a move for black then. And this bishop goes into a pen as well. So we could see a move like d4 maybe now. And we could potentially win a piece. This is really strong for white. And again, not even castling for black. This could be dangerous. I like d4 here. I like d4 a lot. Let's see if they play it. No, Okay, so just attacking with c4. I don't like it as much because the pawn can take and trade off, and it also hits the queen. We are hanging the e pawn, but probably no time to take, as you would lose the bishop. And black elects just to castle and stay safe. But now maybe a move like c5. No, the rook is in time to defend. So yeah, I think c4 was a little slow. I think d4 could have been the move to have been played. But still a favorable position here for white. Definitely still with a slight edge. All right, so queen on the a file, adding even extra pressure. Bishop can come back, and I think the rook on a8 should be sufficiently defended. Yeah. So I think what pressure we had has been lost with the move c4. But we're still up in material, up a pawn, and this e7 pawn's hanging as well. But yeah, e4 is hanging. What else? We could try to just trade off the rooks and say we've got these nice outside pass pawns. Hey, Chess Jawa, good to see you. All right, let's go back to our board 2. So what's going on here? I see white has pushed these pawns in front, so slightly weaker position, but they are up a pawn. So knight hops in, kicking the queen out, attacking this pawn as well. So the queen cannot stay on this diagonal. So are we going to lose this pawn? Is black going to be down 2 pawns? Well, maybe a move like... Well, okay, what I'm thinking is if the queen can get on this diagonal, we can apply some pressure to f3. Maybe not queen c6, because then knight takes is discover, double check on the queen. Actually, no, the knight's still here. I'm thinking, like, yeah, maybe we could have tried... Are we just down 2 pawns? Is Caleb going to be able to find some compensation here? He does have the bishop pair. Well, not anymore. Alright, so knight takes. Now we've got opposite color bishops. So even though down 2 pawns, he could try to fight for some sort of draw. But I think he wants a little bit more. He's always going to try to fight on. Keep the attack alive. He's, for instance, attacking the c2 pawn. And this d4 pawn is doing a good job of locking the position of these pawns. So, let's see. Alright, well that looks like another free pawn, right? Takes, but takes. We do get some activity. So that's a pawn. We can take here. Drop this. And then queen here. Okay. If the queen wasn't under attack, this is a skewer that Caleb's trying to line up. So it looks like, okay, well, the rook has left defense of c2, and now this bishop is a monster. This is worth a rook. White Noise, thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. So yeah, we are supporting UCLA, and this will go towards funding and help them out. I believe now c2 is falling. So I think this pawn should have been grabbed by white, and instead electing to move the pieces to the light squares, and as a consequence of that, I do believe that c2 is going to fall, and it's going to fall hard. There's no good way to defend. rook takes, and we're gonna be taking a lot of material. Okay, going with the queen instead, saying I want the queens off because, dude, why take with c? I think rook takes would have been so much stronger, because then you could take on f2, bishop to e3. Honestly, I feel like that would have been lights out, and now it's white with the chances to break even with the opposite color bishops. Man, getting the queens off, I'm not a big fan of. Rook takes, and oh my goodness. But instead, we get the queens off, and now, even though Caleb's up a whole minute, Black's gonna be trying to work really hard to find any weaknesses to clinch a draw here. Queen takes on f3. Rook takes. What? Queen f3, you still take on f2. Because if queen takes, bishop e3 pins the queen to the king. I think this is a draw. Caleb's gonna have to prove me wrong here. Maybe he finds a way. I mean, it's gonna be a lot harder than I think rook takes on c2. Yeah, queen takes on e3 as well. So I mean, that would have been queen versus rook and a piece, but still. And even still, you have queen and rook on the second rank. You don't even need to take and play here, technically. So all right, let's look at what else has happened. It looks like their board 4 has gotten a point against our board 3. Hold on, what happened here? Oh, so we won a pawn, but then we got forked, so we have to give up the exchange. Ooh, that's a very strong diagonal that we missed. So instead of taking and yeah, we'd be in a tough spot with both these bishops under attack. Rook to d2 is a very passive move that might need to be played. And yeah, the rooks come in. So that was a missed piece there. So that was unfortunate. Looks like our board 1 just won. Hold on, let's check this game out. So lots of pressure here on h3. So could have won the exchange here. Instead, electing to keep these pieces alive. And look at this move. Bishop to f1. The clearance tactic, bringing the queen in. And that is just checkmate on the spot. So very strong play here by Anshul. So let's add another point for him. I think their board 4 got a point. And did our board 3 win against their board? Wait. No, this is our board 4. I think just 1. So this was, I think this was deciding the match. Yeah, I remember the B and C pawns were really strong. So let's update the scores here. He got a point. He got a point, I believe. Yeah, Don Quixote, and then Anshul got another point. So let's look at Caleb's game. Very low for both sides. And let's see. The exchange has been given up, but a queen is now on the board. That's not looking good at all for our board 2 here, Caleb. Yeah, this is just completely lost. So maybe going for some sort of stalemate tactic. I mean, that's really all he has left to go for at this point. He's trying to find something. Trying to give up this pawn. There goes the rook. And that's going to queen. So yeah, tough one, man. He had a promising position. There's bishop check, king over, and there's mate. All right. Well, Caleb went down to their board 1, so their board 1 getting some points back, but UCLA just needs. They just need a draw to clinch the win. So this is the first game of round 4, the final round. So 4 games left to be played. This is our board 3 against their board 3. Again, we just need a draw to clinch the match. So that was unfortunate. Caleb trading queens down and then losing that end game. So let's see here. We might already have some early draw offers. No, I don't think we need to get a draw this early to clinch the match. This would be quite the sweep if we ended up in a draw for the match overall. It would be appropriate if we start the first round with a sweep and then get swept in round 4 for a tie game. What a tie break that would be. But I'm pretty confident we should be doing pretty well. I mean, we still have a 4-game advantage. So both rounds 2 and 3 were drawn at two wins each. So the first round was a bit lopsided. It was the most lopsided it could be. But since then it's been dead even. So we'll see if Arizona could pull off the miraculous comeback with a reverse sweep of their own. So board 3 against board 3 here. We're going to be getting this bishop with the knight move. So this knight hops in, saying if you take my bishop, I'll take yours. So what's going to happen here? Maybe just move the bishop back or bring the rook over. Definitely don't want to castle. That would be bad. That's like the one move you can't do. You can take, and if take, then you have to play king takes, and you can't castle anymore. Because you can't just take the rook because you lose a queen with check. So interesting positions so far. Yeah, I think like we're either rook over or bishop to c8. All should be fine. Let's see. If bishop to c8, the queen can come along on this diagonal and hit the rook. Should be annoying. Good to see you, Nicholas Tice. How you been? All right, so getting the bishop up to c6, preventing the queen from getting on this diagonal, but now the queen can get on. All right, so rook to d8 could be played. Could also see like queen takes. Now that would be interesting because pawn takes, sack the rook, king steps up, queen takes here, and then queen to d7. Probably not worth it because the king just steps over. But then was there queen takes f7? No, because the pawn was here. I'm thinking if this bishop and queen can coordinate on f7. Caleb, you won your game already? This is round 4. So board 2 versus board 2. Very strong queen here. And, oh shoot, they need to play bishop back. And why they didn't do that? Maybe they just missed the bishop. So awesome. So that clinches the win for us. So well done. Well done. Let's see. So we got both sides castle. All right, let's add this board for Caleb. Caleb, I was saying in your last game you should have played rook takes c2, not queen takes c2. He's gonna play queen e7. I don't know. I didn't see it. John, that's a good question. I have no idea. Unfortunately. Okay. What's going on here? Bishop protecting well, removing the protection of the rook on the knight. So now the knight's hanging. Also protecting the bishop from this knight capture. We have a check that we can play and then bring the knight into f4, hitting this bishop. This pawn's hanging though. But if we get knight to f4, they can't take because then the rook's hanging. I mean the bishop's hanging. Okay, instead electing for check. Oh, very strong check actually, because now rook takes, hitting the queen and defending the knight. What a find here by our board 3, and what a blunder from them. So yeah, you always should calculate check. I missed that. Well, they're playing pretty slowly, so they're down 2 minutes on the clock, so it's not like it's game over, but you know, just taking should be pretty sufficient. I'm guessing they're deciding between queen takes and rook takes. So electing to take with the rook. Losing the pawn, but still pretty good, you know, up a whole piece. Okay, so yeah. Just getting that c2 pawn now. You take with the knight. This is looking pretty good. Maybe like rook, yeah. Rook to c1, trying to pin the knight to the rook, but now we've got to move like queen f5. And now we're threatening some smothered mates. Discover double check, queen sack, knight c2 mate ideas. Let's see, how does white defend this? There's no legal king moves. Oh boy. Well, now the king can step up to b2. I wonder if you can sack the knight, give check. And there's no b4 moves. I don't think. What else can be done? Okay, just doubling up here. You don't really necessarily have to give check. I think b4 now would be pretty good. You can always force the queen. Oh, this is also strong. Threatening more discoveries. You can just grab this pawn. They probably just play rook back. Okay, so just trading off queens here. Up a piece. Don't get back ranked. Here should be sufficient. Very low on the clock here. Get a flight square. Just get a flight square. Who cares? Take a6, or you can play a5 if you really wanted to. All right, so flight squares in. 20 seconds to 2 minutes and 45 seconds. All right, let's look at another game. This is the board 4 matchup. So our board 4 got a point against their board 1. So very strong player. Let's see what's going on here. So hitting the rook, we have f2 sufficiently defended by white. I was hoping maybe we could play some like knight h3 moves, but it doesn't really work out. What else could we try for? Knight into d5 might be good. So okay, there's potentially that knight fork on d7 now. Rook from a to d8 is protecting that. All right, so the bishop comes all the way back. This is a strong bishop, you know, taking away a flight square from the king. All right, so attacking d4. Trying to stir up some trouble here. Let's look at our board 1 against their board 1. Very low on the clock here. Almost no time. What's going on? They can double isolate our d-pawns. That might be a good move with this last rook move, blocking the bishop. So these are kind of awkward placed pieces. This bishop's going to try and come in on these dark squares, though. Trying to zigzag its way in. Let's see. So the queen almost preemptively just getting off this diagonal. Trying to work on light squares, but you know, Unschel does have the bishop pair here. And yet this bishop going to try to zigzag its way in. So here, actually, it looks like black's just trying to trade off these light square bishops. Pretty good idea. Yeah, these pawns going to be hard to work with. So black's definitely favored in terms of pawn structure. Trying to trade off queens makes sense. So Caleb's just planting this bishop in. And just going to try to play on this b file, prevent any pawn movement from black. And maybe this a pawn can stir up some trouble. So yeah, these are double isolated pawns, but they are holding back a lot for black. Yeah, did I say Caleb? I meant Unschel. This is our board 1 against their board 1. So let's see, what else? What other score should I record? I think their board 4 got a point, and our board 3 got a point, right? Yeah, white noise. That's awesome. Did Robert say anything back? Okay, so we had this b5 pawn push. So just locking these pawns on light squares, pretty smart. This is quite the positional battle here between these two players. Unschel barely any time whatsoever. This knight could hop in and try to cause some trouble on this king side. All right, Unschel trying to get the queens off now. Losing a pawn in the process. Doubling up on the c file though, so c6 is hanging. This queen maybe could come in now, stir up some trouble, but you know, you gotta watch out for potential weaknesses on f2. We play f3. F3. Not trading the bishop, not yet. We'll drop on lots of pawns here. He's got no time. Yeah, there's a big pawn to give up. And this should just be one for black. That's a pawn. Nope. Okay. Well, yeah. 2 pawns, too much, in my opinion. Let's see. I don't know. You guys think he could trade off some pawns and get a draw here? King up. Yeah. King over. King back. Yeah. King back. Draw. No. So take here and now rook here. I don't like the pawn push. Is this a draw? No. No way. Is it a draw? King take. No. Oh boy. You should have saved the pawn, I think. Interesting. I would have played like rook up. Man, he was down 2 pawns. If he saves this, that's impressive. Now this king's cut off. Oh, so they agreed to a draw. So Arizona's board 1 offered the draw there, and they took the draw. So let's see. Final score. I think 10.5. Oops. So Anshul going undefeated, 3.5 out of 4. So they're board 1, starting off with a loss to our board 4, bouncing back 2.5 out of 3. So their only loss was against our board 4. So really well done. And looks like their board 3 was unable to get any points. So yeah, really well done. This is a very strong UCLA B team, taking down some schools' A teams. Yeah, who are they gonna play against next week? Let's see. Next week, they should have a really tough matchup. Maybe Caltech. Let's look. Yeah, so we're playing Caltech. So another LA school. That's gonna be another tough one. That is their A team as well. So yeah, tough work ahead of us, but I'm confident we've got a very strong B team. One of the best